This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Friday, March 31st, 2006, and this is episode number 81 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Matt Hodgford from mgmstudios.org. On today's panel is the man advocating for a concierge level at Scopa Towers, Mike Scopa. Welcome, Mike.
Hollywood 1939. Amidst the glitz and glitter of a bustling young movie talent at the height of its golden age, the Hollywood Tower Hotel was a star in its own right, a beacon for the show business elite. Now, something is about to happen that will change all that. Hey, Matt.
If that quote wasn't from the studios, I would have cut you off immediately. Way too long.
That was for our guest.
There you go. Who we'll get to in just a little bit. We've also Mouse World Radio's Mike Newell is here. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Matt. How you doing?
Outstanding. And we also have our own American Idol, Len Testa of TouringPlans.com. Welcome, Len.
How's it going, Matt?
Great. And Len's boss, the one, the only, Bob Selinger, is joining us today, who is, of course, best known as the author of The Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World. Welcome, Bob.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you got me before I went entirely senile.
That's what we aim. We prefer the senile guests, but we'll take the semi-sane as well. Before we get started today, I just wanted to announce that Darren Neely submitted the winning logo in the contest we've been holding for a few weeks to submit and pick a logo for us to use as the official Walt Disney World Today logo. Soon we'll be taking Darren's great logo and putting it all over our website, business cards, shirts, and, well, anything else that Mike Scopa can merchandise. So a big thank you to Darren for a job well done, and a big thank you to everyone who sent in entries. I think we can all agree that there were at least 4 entries or so that all of us would have been happy to have had chosen as well. So, again, thank you to all our listeners who sent in the entries, and those of us who also helped us pick out which we decided on in the end. I think
those are some great logos.
But let's move on to today's show's topic, and on today's show we have Bob Selinger, who is the author of The Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World, and we've brought Bob on to talk a little bit about his book. Bob, what attracted you to first make a guide about Walt Disney World?
I think it's the same thing that probably attracts people to buy the book. I went down there with my kids, paid a hell of a lot of money, and spent all day standing in line. I don't think I saw more than about 5 or 6 attractions. And I just thought there had to be a better way to do this. And, you know, I'd had some background in disciplines that I thought I could bring to bear to find a way to route our reader contrary to the flow of the crowd and therefore minimize their weights.
What's state of the art for travel guides these days in terms of Disney? I mean, certainly travel guides have kind of evolved.
Well, Disney's an anomaly. There's really no book in any market on any destination that brings the level of research sophistication that we do to the Disney World Guide. Len, with his evolutionary algorithm that he's patented that is the heart of our touring plan, generating software, gives us a wholly different perspective and a different and more reliable way of taking care of the readers and making sure that they have a great economy of time. But as I say, that's a very unusual book. There are not very many destinations where you have the same sort of situation and type of conditions operative that would lend themselves to that sort of approach. Len and I have been talking here for a couple of years, certainly about using the same approach in Las Vegas and Washington D.C. and the Disneyland parks, DCA and Disneyland Park itself. But you take that same methodology and go to Paris or New York, and it doesn't work there.
That's interesting. Len, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of the things about the Disney parks that you don't see like in New York City or in Paris or in Vegas is because Disney requires so many people to operate its theme parks, everything is regimented, right? So every cast member has a specific role, and that's what they do. And your experience in the parks is really just playing a part in one big system. We know, for example, that the TTA makes a round trip every 10 minutes, right? And we know the sequence of the background music in every one of the lands. And everything is just so highly regulated because it has to be. Everything automated is automated. Everything that could be scripted out is scripted out. And because of that, Disney World itself is a huge system where they've tried to take as much variability out of your experience as possible. You don't get the same sort of regimentation or the same sort of big system view in like New York City, where the subways might be on a schedule, but you can't hail a cab and have one there every 10 minutes, and things don't go off according to plan because there's no central authority planning everything, right? I mean, I think we say this in the book actually. Like Disney World itself, your experience there it's one big system. So for the research, we just try and figure out how the system works. And I think in New York and in Vegas, it's not quite so pervasive.
Well, Bob,
yeah, it's not integrated. When in other destinations, there's really not an overarching system. At Disney World, everything is so structured and regimented that the system basically dictates how everything that happens, including how people see theme parks and what they can do. There's sort of a series of forced choices that begin with your entry into the park and then moving to a specific place, say the Central Hub of the Magic Kingdom, where you then have a choice to go to each of the respective lands. And then once in a land, you again have a certain set of attractions that give you another set of forced choices. And if you're a student of Disney, it's really sort of interesting because bottom line, you're a cow in a really big herd, and the Disney trick is to move the herd where they want it to go without letting anybody know they're a cow.
That's a great analogy. It's kind of like, on a more personal level, it's kind of like those choose your own adventure books almost. If you go here, then if you go then turn to page 48, and it's kind of like the same thing with the parks on a really basic level. In that if you go to Adventureland, then first, then other possibilities open up and other possibilities close for you. And certainly, I think that the whole trip planning aspect. I mean, that was the first part that really made put the guide on the map, I think, of commando touring, and not only the idea, but regimenting it. But Bob, can you talk a little bit about what else is new in the guides over the past couple of years, other than the blue font?
The blue font is good. People like the blue font.
Well, we're basically responsive to what Disney does. When they change their methods of operation, whether it's the way they open a park or the way the transportation system operates, then that's an opportunity for us to go in and make a thorough analysis. And generally, as Len said, if there's a system that you can peer into and ultimately sort out, there's just inevitably a tremendous amount of very useful information that you can package in a number of ways to help your reader. One of the best things we've done in the last couple of years, which is of, I think, great importance to readers, is the crowd calendar, where we can tell you on any particular day of the whole calendar year what the crowd are going to be, and also which parks are best to see on that day. Now, it turned out that Disney was changing things like extra magic hour program and so forth so frequently that we had to take it out of the book. But in a way, that was an advantage to the reader, because now it's on TouringPlans.com and it can be updated almost daily. So when you go to TouringPlans.com and you pull up this crowd calendar, you're going to have the very latest information. And an assessment of all the variables that determine what a crowd level will be at a particular park on a given day.
Yeah, the calendar was interesting because when we first put it in, I think it was was it the '05 edition, Bob, that went in? And we did our best guess on what we thought it would be based on what we had in terms of historical data. But it turns out that there were a couple of periods for which we didn't have adequate data, and we got some feedback from the readers like early in 2005. Like by February, I think we knew where our weak spots were. So in 2005, we actually put researchers in the parks more than 100 days for the year, just in the Magic Kingdom, just to get the crowd calendar updated. So anytime there's a question about what the crowd level might be or what the conditions are relative to what we've predicted in the calendar, we've got an on-site team in Orlando that can literally be in the parks in an hour's notice to tell us exactly what's going on. But the amount of work that ended up going into that thing, it cost us, it was many thousands of dollars of labor and many hundreds of days of work to get it to where it's at right now. It's just, you have no idea how much effort goes into that thing, man.
Well, why don't you tell us, Len, what kind of people work on the book? Where are they located? I mean, is it kind of like our podcast where we're strewn across the country, or do you have like unofficial guide headquarters?
Except they're professionals.
Yeah, right.
I'll let Bob answer that.
There's about 22 people that work on the book, including somebody who handles our Disney reader mail. There's a child psychologist that we take down every couple of years to spend 7 days in the parks and observe families and make observations, draw conclusions, and develop some helpful advice for parents in a lot of situations. We've got a number of folks that have worked with us for 5 and 6 years who basically do nothing but collect data. Len organizes and supervises that, but an example is who's monitoring the waiting times of attractions in the Magic Kingdom. This researcher might have 2 or 3 lands, and they just move through those 3 lands, recording the wait times at each attraction on the order of every 15 minutes. So there's a number of, that particular aspect of our data collection really requires a lot of people. We have 2 teams that do nothing but hotel inspections. Most other guidebooks to Walt Disney World will cover the Disney hotels, but we cover approximately 250 non-Disney properties in the general Lake Buena Vista, Kissimmee, Orlando area, and that's a huge job. Those hotels are visited whenever there's a change in management, whenever there's a renovation, and if that doesn't happen, then they're on a regular rotation, so they get visited about either once every 2 years or once every 3 years, depending on the hotel and its relative importance in the constellation of hotels there. So there's just there's a whole gang. Usually we have 3 people from the Birmingham office who are there. It's gotten in the last couple of years where we're cross-training people. This year, for instance, we took some of Len's researchers and taught them how to do hotel inspections. We've had our hotel inspectors out in the park testing touring plans for Len. So we're getting to be not only multifaceted, but well cross-trained as well.
Great. I think I see Mike Scopa's hand up in the back of the room.
Bob, I have a question. Could you comment or discuss the relationship that you have built over the years with the Disney company and how that works in helping you put out the guide every year?
Well, for the first 10, 12 years the guide was on the market, we didn't have a relationship. Since we were the first independent guidebook to Walt Disney World, our product was launched at a time when Disney had this notion that they had a divine right not to be criticized, and the fact that we brought out a guidebook that criticized as well as extolled things that Disney did very well was not pleasing to them. So we were very much persona non grata. What happened eventually was that there were some people within Walt Disney World, and specifically within their marketing and publicity department, who thought that, well, this is stupid just to keep these guys locked on the other side of the door. It's much better to have a relationship with them. You're more likely to head off at the pass some misunderstanding or a piece of information that might not be totally correct. So for a while, we were just backdoored. There were people who would put down that they were meeting with a fellow from Newsweek, and they'd come out and sit down with us, and we'd go over a variety of things. But to this day, we really don't use the Disney people for much of anything. We always pay our own ways into the park and into the hotels, and we conduct all of our research anonymously, except for Lynn, who always wears an Unofficial Guide T-shirt. But the rest of us are there in our dark glasses and black suits, and nobody knows who we are. But
Men in Black.
That's right. But the bottom line is that the most useful thing our relationship with Disney provides is information on things that are upcoming. The book is printed twice a year. We're revising it twice a year now. But in between those revisions, attractions may open, restaurants may open, things could close, operations can change. And to be able to have people in the Disney organization who can give us a heads up and allow us to anticipate those changes and cover them in the book before they actually happen is very helpful, and that's the greatest benefit of working with the Disney people. But to characterize the relationship in general, we are on very, very good terms with them now.
How is the Unofficial Guide different from other books and websites out there? You kind of hit upon it being the independent thing, but that was kind of like, way back when, it was just you and the Official Guide out there. How is the Unofficial Guide separated itself?
Well, for one thing, all the researchers are much better looking than other places.
Right.
But Bob, you were going to say something else, so go ahead.
Well, it begins with a very basic approach. What you have in most guidebooks is an awful of authors that go out and look at a destination and record things that are important to them. Everything that you see in those guidebooks are filtered through the specific singular taste of the person that's writing them, and there's generally not much regard for the reader or the reader's needs. The way we begin every guidebook is to do a fairly thorough analysis of our target market and to ascertain just exactly what they want in a book, how they want it presented, and what things are important to them. And then we basically build the book according to their specification. And to avoid the bias of the single author or maybe co-authors, we use, as we've talked about a few moments ago, a lot of people. And when you've got a lot of people of varying ages and backgrounds who are all weighing in on, say, their opinion of Expedition Everest, you bring a lot more perspective. It's not just saying that it's X, because it would only be X to one person or two persons. But we for instance, in our age group ratings, we tell the reader how each of 6 different age groups responded to the attraction and how good they thought it was. So we call this a marketing concept approach, which basically is taking your cue from the people that you're writing for and building the book to their specifications. I think a second thing is the amount that we invest in our books. The type of research we do is not found generally outside of large corporations, universities, or research institutions. It's just not. It takes too many people. It takes specific training and background and education and field experience and there's not any other series or any other guide to Walt Disney World where the author or the co-authors have the wherewithal, the financing, the experience, and the expertise to do this. There's just, the kind of research we do would be very, very difficult for even a large research firm to replicate.
Great. Well, Bob, we're going to have you back on again to discuss even more aspects of the book because, we're really just scratching the surface. Maybe you can even share some stories about our favorite panelist, Len. And
there are no stories about me. all of those people have mysteriously disappeared.
And if all else fails, just tell us some stories about Christina, which is always just as interesting.
What?
Go ahead, Bob.
All my stories about Christina are going to stay under the table. I'll tell you that. We're not going to talk about that.
No,
probably.
That'll be
Len
another
and I do. Len and I do okay, but I'm scared of Christina.
I think we're all a little scared of her. Well, Bob, thanks again for being on the show. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
And, of course, you can pick up the unofficial guide to Walt Disney World at your local bookstore. I'm sure I have not come into a bookstore that doesn't have it. And if all else fails, you can always order it online. Amazon has it. We'll put a link in the show notes. And that's it for us today. This has been episode number 81 of Walt Disney World Today. If you want to find older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the Walt Disney World Today website at www.wdwtoday.com. You can also email us at questions@wdwtoday.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, Mike Newell, and Bob Sellinger, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.